Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Gingerren spends a lot of time on Tatooine in the Mandalorian TV series. In the first season, he's there looking for some work, and in the second season, he's on Tatooine looking for other Mandalorians. Now, consequently, when you spend a lot of time on the desert planet of Tatooine, you will eventually run into a nasty group of individuals known as the Sand People, otherwise known as the Tusken Raiders. The Tusken Raiders are a group of primitive nomadic wanderers who live in the great deserts of Tatooine. Not much is really known about the group because they are extremely superstitious and hostile towards outsiders. And that is because their culture is completely incompatible with outside groups. As a matter of fact, no one even knows where the Tusken Raiders came from and what their roots are. Some legends say that Tatooine was once a beautiful garden world before the ancient Rakatan Empire came along and glassed the surface. The Tusken Raiders could be some descendants of the former inhabitants of the planet, the last signs of a previously glorious civilization. Whatever happened to them, the Tusken Raiders of today basically worship water. Their religion and culture is all about moisture.
Silver people steal their water, and now you insult them by not drinking it.
Which makes sense. The Tusken Raiders, despite their strange behavior and appearance, required water to survive, just like most carbon-based life forms. And Tatooine is an extremely dry planet. What little water exists is trapped away deep beneath the surface of the ground in reservoirs or extracted from the air by farmers. The Sand People jealously guard their water and are extremely territorial. This is a byproduct of a lack of resources on this desert planet. There are situations, unfortunately, where living beings cannot coexist peacefully, and only one tribe or group can survive. And in order to survive, they must guard precious resources with their lives. This is probably one of the reasons why the Tusken Raiders never evolved into a more advanced society. So much effort was spent guarding water and harvesting what little food was available that these individuals didn't even develop a written language. As a matter of fact, the only way Tusken Raiders could pass down knowledge to future generations was through their oral traditions, which were usually told around the campfire every night. Many of the stories they told were, of course, about water, and the Tuskens' special responsibility to protect this water and jealously guard it because all of the water on the planet was essentially their property. Unfortunately, this means that when outsiders came to Tatooine, either the mining corporations or settlers or refugees, the Tusken Raiders usually saw them as a threat. By the time of the Galactic Civil War, the Tusken Raiders had grown increasingly xenophobic, and relations with the moisture farmers and local inhabitants were basically non-existent.
Tusken Raiders. I heard the locals talking about this filth.
Tuskens think they're the locals. Everyone else is just trespassing.
The Tusken Raiders, unlike other primitive species, had no desire to learn about the outsiders' culture. There's no desire to learn galactic basic or understand how these new settlers and their machines worked. I mean, they were extracting water out of the air, something that I think the Tusken Raiders would probably want to know about. The reason there was no curiosity of outside races was because the tribes were highly restrictive in what its members could or could not do. For instance, within a village, the roles in which the villagers took was highly segregated by sex. The men were basically fighting and were warriors, and sometimes they herded bantha, but essentially everything else was taken care of by the women. They made sure that there was enough food and water for the tribe to go on surviving. It was also taboo for the Tusken Raiders to reveal any body parts to other individuals, except for childbirth, wedding nights, and other coming-of-age ceremonies. This might have been because of how arid Tatooine was. The Tusken Raiders wore layers and layers of cloth that insulated all of the moisture on their body and prevented it from evaporating. Their most advanced piece of technology, other than the suits they were wearing, were the cycler slug rifles they used to fight off dangerous animals and settlers. Now, culture is one of the most powerful things a group of people can create, and the Tusken Raiders' culture, unfortunately, was created to isolate them from the outside world. Now, the first time Gingerren runs into the Tusken Raiders on Tatooine, I was surprised that things did not immediately devolve into a gun battle. Usually, killers can recognize one another and will sense that threat from another killer. Kind of like when Gingerren and rebel war criminal Cara Dune meet for the first time. But instead of drawing pistols, Gingerren uses this strange form of Tusken Raider sign language, which seems to work, and they actually begin to barter. This is rare because generally Tusken Raiders don't teach outsiders their own language, and we've never actually heard of Tusken Raiders using sign language either. Plus, most Tuskens who belong to a tribe will shoot outsiders who wander onto their territory without hesitation. Remember, protecting one's territory is a life or death situation for these people. But instead of murdering the Mandalorian, they accept his barter and grant him passage through their territory. More surprisingly, they take a pair of binocs from them, which are essentially blasphemous tools of evil to these Luddites. When I saw this scene, I thought perhaps these are just a different group of Tusken Raiders. Clearly not all Raider tribes are the same, and the idea of accepting barter in exchange for passage is definitely a beneficial adaptation for the tribe to take. Instead of potential violence or loss of life, the Tusken Raiders now have a pair of binocs, which is awesome. They can spy on their weird neighbor who spends way too much time in the botha pens. To make matters even more interesting, in the second season, the Mandalorian convinces the Tusken Raiders and a group of settlers to join forces in taking down a krayt dragon. Now, one of the dumber parts of Tusken culture is the need for young men to kill a krayt dragon and recover its pearl. This was apparently a part of some coming-of-age ceremony. We've never really seen a krayt dragon on screen other than maybe Ben Kenobi trying to pretend to be one in episode 4, and so it's quite shocking to see how large the krayt dragon was in The Mandalorian. And also made me wonder, how could a lone Tusken Raider actually take down one of these beasts? Or was this just some type of population control method? Anyway, it is a huge deal for Tusken Raiders to allow non-Tusken Raiders to come along for this very sacred hunt. Now, of course, this particular krayt dragon they were facing needed to be put down. It was being a menace and eating everything that was in its way. But this was a huge departure from the normal type of behavior we would see the Tusken Raiders take on. I mean, in the old days, the Tusken Raiders would literally line the mountains around Mos Espa during the Bootna Eve Classic and take pot shots at pod racers, oftentimes killing individuals. The Sand People would also raid moisture farmers' settlements, steal their women, and kill their men and children. These were the same individuals that took Anakin Skywalker's mom, tied her to a wooden post for weeks, and tortured her until she finally died from the stress of it all. Which of course leads young Anakin Skywalker to his first mass killing that wasn't sanctioned by the Jedi Order. I mean, even during the early Imperial days, the Tusken Raiders would just attack humans for no reason. They would knock out Luke Skywalker one day while he was looking for R2 units. They would ambush Ezra Bridger when he came looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi on the planet. Now, it's said in the prequels, after Anakin killed all of the Tusken Raiders in that village, they began to fear Skywalker as if he were some kind of vengeful demon. But at the same time, they knew of his connection to the Lars family, which might have led to the Tuskens' attack on Luke. I don't really know for sure. But sometime after the Battle of Yavin, Darth Vader would return to Tatooine once again and destroy another village. This time, one individual would survive this ordeal and bring this knowledge to another tribe. Instead of thanking the survivor, though, that tribe would tie him up and then sacrifice him to a massive effigy they had built to Vader. And so at this point, the Sith Lord has transcended mortality and has become essentially a god to the Tuskens. I believe that Darth Vader's vengeance and Anakin Skywalker's anger has significantly changed how Tusken Raiders deal with outsiders. From the survivor's point of view, he would have recalled Darth Vader being an unstoppable force. He was somehow able to use magic to stop weapons from hitting him. It made total sense that a primitive tribe with no knowledge of the outside world would see the Jedi or Sith as supernatural gods. Is this what makes the Tusken Raiders reassess their relationship with outsiders and strangers? If there are individuals out there who cannot be defeated with the gaffy stick and slug thrower, is peace and communication a better way? On the flip side, it is very possible that after Darth Vader destroyed those two specific villages, it made way for smaller groups that were perhaps more peaceful and willing to communicate. There must be a certain amount of diversity even amongst Tusken Raider tribes, and if the dangerous and aggressive ones keep attracting the attention of moisture farmers and individuals like Anakin or Obi-Wan Kenobi, their long-time survivability cannot be that high. It's really going to be groups like the ones Gingerren runs into that will survive in the long run because they are able to benefit from positive relationships with other settlements. So there you have it, guys. That is my theory why the Tusken Raiders seem so much nicer in The Mandalorian when compared to the prequels. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about my theory. And also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.